Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Welcome to getting started on your advocacy journey with the National Eczema Association. My name is Nora Eigenbrod. I'm Senior Manager for Grassroots Advocacy here with NEA, and I am joined by Michelle Guadalupe, who is our Director of Advocacy and Access. And we are excited to have you here in this virtual roundtable. We are going to walk you through the advocacy work that we do here at the National Eczema Association. But more importantly, you'll learn how you can get involved and help us pass legislation to better the lives of the entire eczema community. You'll also get to meet some of our wonderful advocacy ambassadors, and you will even get to write a letter to your members of Congress in real time with us. So thank you for being here, and we are excited to get started. I'm going to introduce our advocacy ambassadors, who we are so lucky to have speaking today on this call just to kind of share their personal perspectives. So I'll do kind of brief introductions of them here, but you'll be able to hear about their firsthand experience in a few minutes. And if you're unfamiliar with our ambassadors program, it's a phenomenal program. I'm not biased. No, I'm definitely biased, but it's still phenomenal. A program for essentially folks in the NEA community, the eczema community, who want to make a difference and get involved in meaningful work with and for the eczema community. So we have 3 tracks involved with ambassadors. Those are advocacy, research, and community outreach. And by signing up, you can volunteer for a variety of exciting engagement opportunities. It's really a, huge menu of options, and you can choose what fits for, the amount of time you have, your personal interests, and just kind of a variety of things. We have virtual, we have in-person. We really want to tailor it to what's exciting to you. Of course, tonight we'll be talking about the advocacy track, but for those who aren't involved yet, I highly recommend that you check it out. If ambassadors isn't for you at this time, we still have a lot of great ways for you to get involved with advocacy, so don't worry about that. But yeah, there's a lot to kind of do and explore with the community, and a lot of really great people to meet as well. So now, for our ambassadors, we are so lucky to have Maisie Wong Paredes. So her location is Atlanta, Georgia. She has been an ambassador for 3 years with NEA, though it feels much longer than that because of her wonderful involvement with us. And she's going to speak a little bit about our August Recess program, but has been involved with a variety of advocacy and just general ambassador work that we do. We also have Lisa Boyan, who is joining us from Londonderry, New Hampshire, also 3 years as an NEA ambassador, and has done some really wonderful work with state proclamations for Eczema Awareness Month in her home state of New Hampshire. So we're really excited to have her here. And we also have Hannah San, who's joining us from Seattle, Washington, and has also been an ambassador for 3 years. And we'll be speaking a little bit about Virtual Hill Day, which is an exciting opportunity that we have coming up pretty soon in May. So thank you all for being here. And yeah, then we'll get started. So first, just kind of wanted to level set with a what do we advocate for? What are you signing up to sort of help us accomplish? So I like to put our policy priorities into 3 general buckets. One of these buckets is access to care. So what is access to care? Essentially, anything that falls here is we are trying to get legislation passed that will really help eczema patients access their healthcare, so their treatments, their appointments, their medications, in ways that are more affordable and also more timely. So a lot of the legislation that falls under this will try to accomplish that in different ways. So one of these big categories that I saw some folks indicate on that poll is step therapy. For those not familiar with step therapy, when a patient is required by their insurer to try and fail one or more insurer-preferred treatments before the insurer will cover the treatment initially prescribed by their doctor, that patient has been subjected to insurance-mandated step therapy. So we often call this try and fail. You can see in this image here, a lot of patients that we've spoken with in the eczema community have said that, they have maybe switched insurances or gone to a new doctor. They've been on a treatment that's really effective and working well for them, but their insurance, perhaps a new insurance company, perhaps the same one, will require them to try and fail different treatments that oftentimes they know won't work for them. So it's taking them a lot longer and costing them a lot more money to get to the treatment that they and their doctor know will work. So this is an area where we see a big need for reform, and we also see that both at a state and federal level, there's a lot of interest in reform there, in common sense reform. Copay accumulators are essentially when insurers have disallowed copay assistance from counting toward a patient's annual deductible and out-of-pocket maximum, but insurers are still collecting this assistance. So if you have received copay assistance from any sort of like patient assistance program or, a variety of different avenues, your insurer might not count it toward your deductible. And a lot of times there's not really clear messaging around this either. A lot of patients don't realize, oh, it doesn't count to my deductible, and they are planning or budgeting for that and then encounter huge problems when they realize that things are not as they seem. So this is an area also that we've seen a lot of interest in reform in, and an area that we've heard from the patient community. This is something that they need help with and would like to see changed. Additionally, non-medical switching is when a health insurance company sort of revokes coverage for a treatment without medical cause. So a lot of times, something that may be covered no longer is covered, or the cost is suddenly switched mid-year. That's something that we've heard about too, and something that we have focused our advocacy efforts on as well. So just kind of want to be clear. I know that these phrases, it can take some time to kind of familiarize yourself with them, but we're here to help in all of our advocacy programs where we are having advocates, our ambassadors, help us make the case for these bills. We make sure to walk you through, answer any questions so that you feel really confident and familiar with the policy priorities and why we're doing what we do. And all of the work that we do is backed up by research and surveys that are run by our team here at NEA as well. Additionally, that second bucket is eczema research funding. We know that there are some great new treatments on the market now, but we also know that those treatments will not cover everyone in the community, and we need to keep funding this research pipeline on a federal level as well, just so that we can get a lot of federal research is really high risk, high reward, which is really great because we can see that kind of cutting edge developments in the research community come out of this. And so, a big part of what we do is making sure that we are advocating for robust increases in this eczema research funding. And then finally, eczema awareness raising. We want to make sure that on the Hill in state capitals, our legislators know about the eczema community. There are so many different policy priorities floating around in the minds of our lawmakers. And, we need to make sure that the eczema community is heard from, that we are presenting them with data, with information and findings, and that they know to prioritize us when we come to them. All right, now I'll have Michelle talk a little bit about our 2024 legislative asks.
Great. Hi, everyone. Yes, I know that was a lot of information, and for some might be some new terms, but now that you've heard it, you're like, oh, you know what? I have gone through that. So we are here every step of the way on our website. We, define those terms, go into them in a little bit more detail. But as Nora mentioned, we have many opportunities throughout the year to engage with our legislators, and we do that at both the federal and the state level. Wanted to first go through a few of our federal legislative asks. And these really kind of mirror what Nora had just talked about with step therapy reform, with those copay accumulators, and really looking at that eczema funding options. So what we like to call the Safe Step Act, this is has to do with step therapy reform. We are in the second year of a 2-year congressional session. And so they already have bill numbers. So the House of Representatives 2630 and the Senate bill 652. That's just really for for legislators to know, okay, you guys are talking about a particular bill. It's HR 2630. It's the Safe Step Act. It really has to do with allowing for doctors to have exceptions with insurance providers. So just as Nora had mentioned, you fail a medication before, this legislation would help you be able to get the right medication quicker. We've had 166 co-sponsors, so that's been pretty incredible in the House. We've had 38 co-sponsors in the Senate. And the reason why we're getting so much interest is because of all of our patient caregiver stories. You sharing your story, you sharing how, gosh, this was so hard for me to get because of XYZ reasons. That's why legislators will sign on and be supportive. So we still have a ways to go. And I know Dane, who you'll meet here shortly, he'll give you a little bit more of a lay of the land of what's happening in DC right now. But the Safe Step Act, this is, has been introduced in multiple Congresses. Legislation at the federal level can be a challenge to get passed, but that's again why we need you and your support. And you'll see how you can get involved here in a little bit. Our second one is the Help Copays Act. This has to do with ensuring that copay assistance counts towards your deductible. That money, the insurance is receiving those assistance dollars. We want to make sure that the patient doesn't get slapped with a really huge bill the next time they go to the pharmacy counter. It has over 100 co-sponsors in the House and 17 co-sponsors in the Senate. And again, it keeps on getting interest because people are hearing these stories from constituents all across the country. And each of these pieces of legislation that we have is also supported by the larger patient and provider community. So, you may know someone who has diabetes. You may know someone who has cancer. You may know someone with arthritis. All of the groups, we are all going towards the same goal of passing this type of legislation. NIH funding, incredibly important. I mean, just in the past, 10 years, the landscape for eczema has just improved greatly with the types of treatments that are available. And a lot of that has to do with, being able to have this increased funding with the National Institutes of Health. So as an advocacy community, we are advocating for Congress to continue to invest in research funding. So every year as a community, we go towards and say, hey, we really want this, this bucket to increase. So NIH, really important. I know several of you are very interested in research. A newer ask that also has to do with research was through the Department of Defense, which I know is a little bit interesting to think, why are we doing something with the Department of Defense? Well, they have this peer-reviewed medical research program, the PRMRP program. It's a mouthful. It's okay. Like Nora mentioned, we always provide briefs and information to anyone that is doing any of these types of programs with us. But this is another way for research topics to be able to get funded. And because of our ambassadors in a past virtual Hill Day, they said, hey, we need to be able to add eczema to the list of topics that can get funding through this program. So that's pretty cool that we were able to do that. And it was because of our community members. I know that's a lot. Today is really just about kind of level setting everyone, sharing with you some of the work that we're doing at both the federal and the state level. If you want to go to the next slide, we do have, you'll see a couple of these issues: step therapy reform, copay accumulators. We are also working at the state level insurance can be incredibly complicated. Many of us have insurance through our employer, and it could be through like an employer-sponsored health plan. We need to have federal legislation pass in order for those protections to cover all of us that work for have that employer-sponsored health care. We also have a good subset of our population that either are on Medicaid or they are part of like these like a state employee insurance. So that's why we're also working very closely at the state level as well. And as Dane can tell you, he can reiterate sometimes the slowness of the federal government. We've been able and we've seen that states are a little bit more nimble in passing legislation. So we want to make sure that we are doing this at both levels. Insurance that is covered at the state level, insurance that is covered at the federal level. And what we really see is where we're getting more and more of these state bills passed, the members of Congress notice that. It's like, oh, the state legislature in Illinois, it passed a step therapy bill. So maybe I should consider being a co-sponsor and helping at the federal level. So more and more of my constituents can have this coverage. Same with copay accumulators as well, being able to ban that practice and to ensure that all copays count. So this was just a quick flavor, a quick, snapshot of what we're doing. We just want to ensure that, we're working for the community on both levels. And I see a question. Let me go ahead and address that. I see it has to do with our copay accumulators. Yes, sorry if it's small on there, but yes, the ones in green, they did pass accumulator laws. So, that's the practice where then, yes, assistance will, be covered if you have that kind of state insurance. And then on step therapy reform, you'll see it's more of that blue than that brown that has passed as well. Great. That was a great question, Karen. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. That was great. All right, so now we're going to have a little update from the Hill with Dane. So Dane Christensen is a managing partner at Health and Medicine Council, a firm with over 40 years of experience serving healthcare and health education organizations with, their advocacy efforts on Capitol Hill and beyond. HMC has been a really invaluable partner to us at the National Eczema Association in the work that we do to spread awareness about eczema on Capitol Hill and to help kind of move our policy agenda forward as well and be our partners in that. So Dane is going to provide a little update from Capitol Hill as it relates to our advocacy priorities, as well as kind of any thoughts he has on joining us in our advocacy efforts.
Yeah, thank you, Nora. And since everyone gave introductions, I'll just say my name's Dane Christensen. I'm from Chicago originally. I've been in Washington, D.C. for the past 20 years. There's a lot going on, and I've been giving a lot of advocacy updates recently, so my voice has about had it. But I'll just mention that I think, most people, when they think about their members of Congress, they usually think about them when it's an election year, and it's an election year this year. And they often think of, divided government, particularly recently. And I'll just mention that my congressman, when I was growing up, was a gentleman named John Porter. John Porter helped double the budget in research funding for the National Institutes of Health. And that occurred at a time when there was a similarly divided government. Newt Gingrich was Speaker of the House. Bill Clinton was president. But even with that dynamic, they still managed to come together to double research funding. That is how the process can work, and that is how the government can work for you, even if the politicians don't always agree with each other. And it seems like they find more that they don't like than that they do like, but the underlying process. And most importantly, they're interested in you and your story. If you tell them that you're interested in resolving coverage and access issues, if you tell them that you're interested in working on advancing research, they're going to find ways to work with your colleagues to do that. And the more of us that are having those connections, the more lawmakers can work together on these issues of common concern in a bipartisan fashion. And all that being said, I'll come back to my initial point, which is that it is an election year. So I want to say something straight away, which is that the people that we talk to about policy, they don't have anything to do with campaigning. They're not there in front of the cameras. They're not trying to get money for ads or on the news. They are there to listen to you, to take your input, and to do policy work, move bills forward, decide how much money should go to different priorities on an annual basis. But they are there all the time, even when it's not an election year. And I want to mention a couple things about why the election matters, particularly for outreach and for what we're doing. The first is that Congress often works on bills. Some of those bills are what are called must-pass bills. The appropriations bills that fund the federal government, how much money goes to research, how much money goes to other priorities, have to happen. They need to get done every year. If anybody's been watching closely, they know that this has been a slow process right now. If you were watching the Super Bowl recently, the Senate was actually in session until halftime voting. And this is akin to the fact that if you have school and there's a final coming up and you haven't studied, you have to do all your work, you have to pull the all-nighter. That's what Congress is doing right now. They've spent so much time focusing on some of these divisive issues in the media that now they're working to get the work that has to get done, including funding the federal government. But that process always moves forward, and it moves forward with your input. But you'll notice that the State of the Union is coming up. They're going to talk about medical research funding. They're going to talk about other priorities. And then they're going to start thinking about the next fiscal year 25, pretty soon. And they're going to want your input on those priorities too. It's always a tough environment, but when you tell them they need to support medical research, or you tell them we need their help, including eczema and the DoD research program, they can really respond to that in a positive way. But they're focused on those spending issues right now because they have to be. The election is going to take place in November. And also, Congress usually passes their bills, healthcare bills like the Safe Step Act, towards the end of the year. They do it in what's called a lame duck session most of the time after the election has taken place. So the members are going to be on the campaign trail in July. They're going to be campaigning in August. They'll probably be out in October. But after that November election, they're all going to come back to Washington, D.C., and they're going to get done the work that can get done. And they're deciding what bills they can pass now. What has the most support? What is bipartisan? Where do the House and the Senate agree? Safe Step is one of those bills. The Safe Step is in a number of proposals that are moving forward because it's so broadly supported. Help copays is getting there too, but these meetings you have in May, conversations you have now, will pay dividends later in the year. If you were talking to them in November and said, hey, I heard you just got back, you want to pass this bill for me, it's a long process. So those discussions you have now about funding items and support for research or supporting individual bills is what's going to pay off at the end of the year when we see what ultimately happens and what moves forward. You can think about it almost like an annual calendar. And then the last thing I'll mention is this year has been notable for a reason. There's a lot of retirements. Many folks have said that they're leaving Congress. We're going to have a real sea change. There's going to be a whole bunch of new folks coming. And I saw in the chat, we had people say they were advocates from Washington, from Texas. These are all key states. There are folks from these states that are on very critical committees. Every member of Congress can make an impact on your issues, but some folks are on these key committees. They're going to be leaving a legacy and working on those final items in November at the end of the year. And then folks that we're talking to now are going to be taking over leadership positions on those different committees, and new folks are going to get elected. But this is why it's so important that we continually work together and speak with one voice and have broad reach, so that there are members all over the country who know who we are, that are all positioned to be of assistance. And whether they're a member that's retiring that wants to do right by their constituents one last time, or they're a member that's been in the middle and is now moving up to leadership and is going to be in a better position to help, or if there's someone who just got there and maybe doesn't know about atopic dermatitis or eczema or anything else, they're all going to get that education and information from us so that they can all work together to help and move the community forward, address unmet needs, capitalize on emerging opportunities. But I don't want anyone to look at election year politics or look at what they see in the news and say, geez, nothing's getting done. The truth is a lot is getting done and a lot has to get done. The process demands it. And we want to be part of that process and have our seat at the table and make our voice heard. And the work we're going to be doing now in the first half of the year is going to be very important to the outcomes that ultimately emerge at the second half of the year when these final decisions are made and bills are ultimately passed. And Nora, I hope that was helpful, and I'm happy to expand on anything.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Dane. Yeah, we really appreciate, Dane is kind of our boots on the ground on the Hill. So I know we hear a lot, get caught up a lot about the gridlock in Congress and, why is this important? Can it make any difference? And Dane and Michelle and I are kind of here to tell you, yes, it can, especially now. The lame duck session, we can't really underestimate the importance of that for our policy priorities. And it really is a pivotal time. So we're really excited to have you all involved. So thank you. Perfect. So now we're going to spotlight kind of a few of our programs. We're at the portion of the webinar tonight where we will tell you about how you can get involved and what you can do to help us. And we have some really great programs, but we also have some really easy advocacy activities. So like we said, it's kind of a menu and you can choose what floats your boat and what interests you. So kind of our key program that we wanted to spotlight tonight that our ambassadors are probably familiar with is Virtual Hill Day. Virtual Hill Day is a really great opportunity for advocacy ambassadors to meet virtually with members of Congress that represent them. So specifically, often their staff, who are the ones who are really doing the day-to-day policy work. So we do the heavy lifting on this, which is great. So if you do register for this event, we will connect you with a group. We will make sure that, we have a training at kickoff, and we really try to prepare you as much as possible. But then you get to attend meetings with your group, with a NEA facilitator, and kind of make the case for our policy priorities and share a little bit about your own eczema story. So I would love to have Hannah, our ambassador Hannah, speak a little bit about her experience with Virtual Hill Day.
Hi everyone, I'm Hannah and I've been with NEA for the past 3 years. And yeah, during my very first Hill Day, I remember I signed up during the middle of quarantine in the pandemic, and I was having the worst skin disease time of my life. And during that time, I felt like really depressed and isolated, and I experienced a lot of internalized stigma. But then I discovered the ambassador program, and since joining it really helped me step up my self-confidence. And I've been through training meetings, and I felt like at first I wasn't mentally prepared, but they gave us a lot of key facts, and then I was not emotionally prepared. And then it wasn't until actually doing my very first Hill Day when I realized, wow, I need to keep going. And just being put into a team with a facilitator, we had so much support, not only logistic support, but also like emotional support. I felt like I really emotionally bonded with them in a way, and I still remember a lot of their stories. And yeah, I hope that they still remember me. um, and I was going through my previous scripts. I found one, because yeah, it helps me to have a script ready to read. Um, yeah, it helps to journal a little bit about this. And I actually pulled together pieces of my memoir that I've been writing since I was 15 years old about my experience with skin disease. And then on the day of lobby day, I just used a really short excerpt of it. And I went from meeting to meeting telling stories, or I eventually revised it more and more, and I focused more on how to make it more hard hitting and agitational. Like, hey, it's urgent, they need to pass this policy. So it's okay if I read like I think it would take a few minutes of just reading.
Sure, yeah. If you have an excerpt to share, I think that's great.
Yeah, so to start, I said, I went from having severe debilitating eczema to mild, almost non-existent eczema within 6 years. That wouldn't have been possible without the help of Dupixent. I was one of the first adolescent patients after clinical trials who received access to this life-saving medication. It changed my life for the better because I finally saw myself having a life beyond high school graduation. Atopic dermatitis used to impact all aspects of my life. There was only so much that I could do when I had inflammation, constant staph infections, and slow healing open wounds that took up nearly 80% of my body. It impacted my mobility so much that it was incredibly painful to walk without a limp, extend my arms, hold a pencil in my hand, sit up from bed, turn my head, open my eyelids, or even make simple facial expressions. Water hurt to touch because water felt like fire. I was scared of food because of fear that it would betray me and cause me more painful inflammation. I couldn't wear most fabrics. I couldn't wear makeup or accessories or fragrances or and I couldn't even shower or bathe the same way that most people do because of the threat of irritation and the pain of reopening wounds. I couldn't go outside on certain days every season because of the cold, wind, heat, or pollen, but I couldn't stay inside my old house because of exposure to dust, mold, and car pollution that seeped in through the cracks of doors and windows from a nearby highway. I was 15. I was a child who was figuring out my self identity and where I fit into society, but everyone looked at me like I was a burn survivor. That wasn't living. I missed out on major life opportunities and simple pleasures in life, and I stopped dreaming of a better future because of learned helplessness. Now I'm 22 and I'm finally wearing short sleeves and shorts, which I haven't since childhood. I no longer have eczema on my arms or legs. I have full mobility and a freer mind that isn't constantly occupied with surviving my skin disease. Currently, I'm a senior majoring in public health at the University of Washington. I'm pursuing grad school with an interest in public health policy for preventative interventions so people don't have to suffer the same way that I did. No one should ever come to the point where they're seriously considering a double leg amputation to get rid of their eczema. No one should suffer needlessly when advanced medications exist, such as Dupixent. Um, yeah, it's been a whole roller coaster journey to where I'm at now. I've met so many people on my advocacy journey, including researchers and fellow advocates my age and those who lived with eczema for 40 years, and an advocate who suddenly developed eczema in his 80s and was more distressed by his eczema than his cancer. I've also met patients living with cancer, blood disorders, cerebral palsy, and type 1 diabetes. Even though they suffered in their own unique ways, they were astonished to learn how much I've suffered as an eczema warrior and how far I've come. It was incredibly validating, and it gave me motivation to keep going for the next 3 years. My years of suffering seem to have finally ended, but I know that the past is not past because my skin disease still exists. It's just dormant. 31 million eczema warriors in the US are still fighting through their skin disease journeys, but many lack the finances to pay for expensive medications, or they're forced to go through multiple failed treatments in order to receive them. People shouldn't have to prove how much they need their medication that their doctor would have originally prescribed to them. That's why the Safe Step Act and the Help Copays Act are crucial to breaking down barriers that impact people's access to health and well-being. Thank you for listening to my story.
Thank you so much, Hannah. That was incredible and really, really beautifully written too. And I think that's just so well said, and I appreciate your thoughts too on kind of your journey into advocacy and how you got here, and that it can feel intimidating at first, but it can also feel that is what we hear a lot is it is very empowering. And you have every right to kind of share that story with your members of Congress because they need to hear it. They work for you. And I think that that is really important to remember. And we always try to convey that to our advocates who may feel like nervous, that, we are there to support you. We will make sure that you feel ready to go and that you feel that empowerment, to bring you into those virtual rooms. So thank you. That was really meaningful. Perfect. Great. Well, Thanks again. So our next program that we wanted to spotlight as part of our Advocacy Ambassadors program is August Recess. For folks unfamiliar with August Recess, it is essentially every August our members of Congress get to go on summer vacation, but it's not actually vacation. It's vacation in the sense that they leave DC and they go back to their home states and districts, but they don't get to take off work because they take that work to their home state, and it's a great opportunity for advocates, patient advocates, to meet up with them and their staffs in their district offices. So this is a little bit different from Virtual Hill Day, where we're meeting with our kind of DC or Capitol Hill staff, but it's a really unique and powerful opportunity to try to set up calls or meetings, virtual or in person, with that district staff. And we have Maisie here, who's going to speak a little bit about her own experience with August Recess with us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maisie, and I am a caregiver for my son who's had eczema since he was a baby. I became an NEA ambassador about 3 years ago after we attended our first Eczema Expo. It was an amazing experience, and I saw my son connecting with people who finally got him, people who finally understood what he was going through, and it was just so heartwarming for me to see him so happy. So big plug for Eczema Expo, that's coming up soon. And as I learned more about NEA at that time, I was just so impressed with the dedication, commitment, and passion from everyone for wanting to improve the lives of those with eczema. And so, having lived the experience with my son, very similar to Hannah's, it was just all the struggles that he had to go through. I really felt compelled to help make a difference, not just for him, but for everyone who's affected by eczema. And I wasn't sure where I wanted to get involved with at first. So I kind of participated a little bit in everything, a little bit of community outreach, a little bit of fundraising, a little bit of research and advocacy to learn more about what each of those roles entailed. And to be honest, I was a bit intimidated at first to get involved in advocacy and to get in front of committees and lawmakers. It was definitely out of my comfort zone. But as I learned more about the obstacles and access issues and even some things that we had gone through as a family, I felt called to action, really felt like I had to make a difference. So I participated in my first Virtual Hill Day and then last year at August Recess. And it wasn't as scary as I thought, as I anticipated. Michelle and Nora really helped to prepare us for the meetings. I mean, they provided all the materials for us and some scripts and some suggestions of what to talk about and walked us through the process. We even saw videos of previous meetings to kind of see how they run. And we had everything that we needed to go into these meetings, you know, knowing that we were equipped. So everything went smoothly, and there was always an NEA staffer with us the whole time, so they helped run the meeting. And I was really just happily surprised that our legislators wanted to hear our stories. They really wanted to hear from us. They were sincere about that. And so what I learned was that us showing up really mattered. It made a difference. And so we had met with my state's congresswoman's office and both senators' offices. So when August recess came around, I was able to reconnect with the health aides of those offices, and like Hannah, they remembered me, so it's kind of made it a little easier to speak with them, and they were familiar with our asks and the legislation and issues that we were pushing for. So that was, you know, a very nice meeting that was easy to do. So with my participation in August Recess and just reaching out to our local legislators and just being in front of them, whether it's a virtual meeting, which we did, or just meeting them in town halls or finding out whether they're doing public speaking events and so on, just being there and saying hi to them face to face, help them connect, you know, me with them and them with me, so that they kind of saw who the real person was in there. So that was really helpful. And through these experiences, I've come to just see how important advocacy is and what a difference it really can make. And yeah, and sure, I still get nervous, but with all of the NEA behind us, with Michelle and Nora helping me prep, it makes it a lot easier. So I really encourage all of you to get involved. I'm learning that our voice matters, and so your voice really matters. And we do need lots of voices to together to really make an impact. So please get involved.
Thank you so much for that, Maisie. And I think too, your experience with, I know you've met with, certain staff members of your members of Congress multiple times. And really, this is, I think the most exciting part is, we have patient advocates who can become that go-to person for that member of Congress's office on eczema. So, by building that relationship and having those meetings periodically, you can become kind of that reference point for them, and you can make sure that the eczema community's priorities are also their priorities. So I think it's really exciting work. So thank you. Great. And now we are going to have chat a little bit about state proclamations. So this is work that we are looking to kind of expand in the future and provide potentially a toolkit, just ways to get involved. But essentially, this process is around creating state proclamations in your home state for Eczema Awareness Month in October. So this would be every year you have the opportunity to have your state acknowledge October as Eczema Awareness Month, to really increase engagement and awareness around eczema in the community, for the entire state. So just wanted to have our ambassador Lisa speak a little bit about this as well. Oh, Lisa, you might be on mute.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Nora. Hi, everyone. I am Lisa Boyan. I'm located in Londonderry, New Hampshire, and I have a son with severe eczema. He was diagnosed at 6 months and he's now 18. I got involved with advocacy because most people that I met thought of eczema as a small, dry patch of skin. Most people don't understand that it could involve someone's whole body. So in 2019, Matt and I contacted some state legislators asking for help to declare October as Eczema Awareness Month. Matt and I met with a few of them in person, and a bill was filed in support of Eczema Awareness Month. In February of 2020, we were notified that the bill was scheduled for a hearing at the State House. So my family and I went to the State House to speak in support of this bill. And my son, Matt, had a very powerful speech about his experience of living with constant lack of sleep, missing school due to doctor's appointments, missing classroom time 1 year because I had 86 visits to the nurse, the challenge of playing sports with eczema. In the middle of a flare, it could hurt to move his neck, water hurt his skin, and he could not even write with a pencil. Unfortunately, after speaking in support of this bill, it did not pass. And then COVID hit. Then in October of 2022, we contacted our state legislator once again, who filed a new bill for us. So in January of 2023, we once again went to the State House and spoke in support of this bill. What the committee suggested to us is that we contact the governor's office and ask for a state proclamation because they felt that a month of recognition would raise more awareness. So I then got in contact with the director of citizen services and explained why we were asking for this proclamation. She basically asked me for statistics about eczema and key points for the language of the proclamation, which Michelle was able to help me with. And 4 years later, we finally got our proclamation declaring October 2023 as Eczema Awareness Month in New Hampshire. So one takeaway I would say is not to take no for an answer. If they say no the first time, just keep at it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Welcome.
Your dedication is really inspirational. And, I think it's interesting because on the state level, like every state operates differently, but it's really about building those connections, I think, and being able to make that case and get your case heard, that I think makes a huge difference. So, and yeah, we have a picture of the proclamation here, which is really exciting. So that's just another kind of program that, we want to help you through if you have interest in that specifically. As an advocacy ambassador specifically, we can help kind of give you the tools in your toolbox, whether it's those sort of that research, that data or statistics around eczema. We have plenty of that, or you need like form emails, anything, we're happy to help. So those are 3 programs that are part of our overall ambassadors program. So they are specifically for our ambassadors. So if those sound interesting to you, specifically, we have Virtual Hill Day coming up, which I think is a really good starter program because, like I mentioned, if you register for that, we will help you through the entire process and make sure that you feel confident and prepared. You have all the training you need. You have a facilitator with you to go into those meetings. So highly recommend that you check out our ambassadors program. Michelle will be dropping that link in the chat, but we're also available. I'll be sure to share my email if you have questions before signing up. It's really, like I said, it's about you. We know everyone has life that gets in the way, so we want to support you so that you're signing up for what you feel empowered and excited to do. But for now, we have a really easy and quick way to get involved with advocacy that will take you maybe under 2 minutes. So we actually have started doing some digital advocacy campaigns. We have software that essentially we pre-draft a letter for you, and then all you have to do is kind of edit the letter, and then if you click send and put your information in, that letter will get sent directly to, or email rather, to your members of Congress based on your address. So it's really exciting stuff. Sometimes people ask, oh, does this make a difference? Is it just, one drop in the sea of voices? But it really does. I think that especially personalized letters, we always recommend changing up, adding your personal story. Members of Congress want to see this, and they want to see kind of coalescing around certain bills to get them passed. So, it may seem like a small thing to do, but it's actually a really great thing to do. And it's a way to kind of register your interest in advocacy with us as well. So, I'm going to share my screen and kind of walk through how to actually fill out this letter. And then we also have, I believe, the link in the chat so that you all right now can click the link and then try it for yourself. And if you have any questions, run into any troubleshooting things, we'll be here to help as well. So tips before we get into this specific campaign that we're doing today. Always personalize your letter if you can. Add in even just a sentence or two about your relationship to eczema, why you advocate, etc. Sometimes people ask, oh, if I don't have a specific story or experience with, in this case, with step therapy, should I still be completing this? Absolutely, yes. If you think that this should change for the eczema community, you don't have to have a specific personal tie to the story. That's necessary. You can just write about your own relationship with eczema. I think that's great, and why having access to healthcare is important. Additionally, use your home address and the location you're registered to vote in. I did see one comment about maybe someone joining us from Canada, which is amazing. Currently, a lot of our advocacy work is really just based in the US, as our organization is, but we definitely do register interest in, down the line kind of expanding the work. So we'll take note of that. And, if you have advocacy opportunities in your own country, I think you can kind of pursue those too if there's similar legislation, etc. And then finally, we recommend forwarding these campaigns to your family and friends for maximum impact, whether they're in your state and another state. We really just want to have that geographic spread to really make members of Congress prioritize these bills in the sea of other bills that they're dealing with. So I am going to stop sharing my screen and then reshare my screen so that I can walk us through. If you've all clicked on that link there. And also, this kind of filling out these campaigns allows you to kind of register your interest in our advocacy work. If we have you on this list, we'll be sure to keep you in the loop about future campaigns, future advocacy opportunities for you to get involved with as well. So this action alert here, and I know we're running up on time here, so I'll be really quick, essentially is about an urgent opportunity we have to pass on the federal level, the Safe Step Act. So it is our step therapy reform bill. It would be a huge deal. We're really hoping to pass it this year. So you can see on the left side here some information, more information about what we're trying to do. And then essentially you can just fill out your information here. So I would put my name, my full name, and then you would put, I'm not actually going to submit this because you should not do fraud and put a fake address in. This is just for the purpose of demonstration, and I've already submitted this before. So let's just say that I live in Edison, New Jersey, and I put my phone number in. And then I put my email address in. And then you get here, we recommend, if you'd like to change the subject line, that always helps get through kind of to the member's office a little bit better. But essentially, we have here just kind of our letter that we've written that includes the ask, that includes specifically what we're looking for. And then here I could put in my relationship to eczema. So I could say, I am a supporter of the eczema community. I can talk about friends or family members that I have who have eczema. I can talk about, just a couple lines about the importance of being able to access the treatment that my doctor prescribed for me in a timely manner. Anything like that, I think is great just to add on. You can review the letter. And then you'll see it auto-populates your information here. So that will be kind of the closing. And then you can just click send email, and then you are all done. And you might get responses back from your member of Congress's office, which is great as well. All right, so if anyone had any questions about that, we will stick around to answer them in the chat, but it's a really quick and easy way to just really kick off your advocacy journey with us and kind of get started with this important work that we have to do together. So in closing, I wanted to just kind of plug our ambassadors program, which you'll see the link in the chat, and also Virtual Hill Day. Registration for Virtual Hill Day will be open until early April. So we highly recommend, if you're interested, to sign up for the ambassadors program if you haven't already, and then you'll be able to access the registration info. Once you're signed up, we will send that your way. So thank you all for being here. Happy to answer any questions, but I hope everyone has a wonderful night.